Hey guys, tonight we begin our journey in the ancient city of Ashur, where reed boats glide quietly down the Tigris, and distant voices murmur in the soft copper glow of a Mesopotamian dusk. Date palms sway gently over rooftop courtyards, and beyond the far fields, farmers tug their oxen in slow arcs, stirring up warm dust as they go. Somewhere, someone is baking flatbread over a crackling clay hearth, and the air smells faintly of cardamom and river mud. Of course, if you were actually alive in this era, you'd probably be illiterate, sunburned, and halfway dead from mosquito bites. But you're not. You're in bed, lucky you, and about to step through one of the most sacred, silent places in the ancient world. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You approach Ashur at twilight, the sandstone walls rising like frozen dunes. The great city's gate is studded with bronze caps that catch the last of the sun, gleaming as if freshly lit from within. A pair of lamassu, those lion-bodied, eagle-winged guardians with serene human faces, flank the entrance. One eye always watches the road, the other the stars. Inside the gate, the world hushes. The usual clangor of market streets and fishmongers' calls has faded. Tonight is different. You're not here for barley or wine or a glimpse of the ziggurat from the bazaar. You're here for the library. Yes, that library. The grand archive whispered about in both temple and tavern, where the oldest stories are written in clay and the gods still answer through symbols etched in dust. The road narrows into an alley of scholar priests. Their robes whisper against gravel. One carries a tablet cradled like a newborn. Another holds a reed stylus behind his ear, like a carpenter might hold a nail. They nod at you, slow and knowing, their faces lined by candlelight and time. To your left, a young woman kneels beside a cistern, humming as she dips her hands into the cooling water. She's rinsing fresh clay, smoothing it for inscribing. The surface reflects the first stars. A warm breeze blows in from the river. It smells of wet rushes and burnt cedar. A bronze lamp swings gently above the doorway ahead, and a carved lintel reads something you can't decipher. Yet, it's old Akkadian, or maybe even Sumerian. Either way, it promises knowledge, or warnings, possibly both. You step through. The floor beneath you is polished clay brick, stamped with the seal of the king. Your sandals leave faint prints. It feels like trespassing, but the scent of ink and fire draws you forward. This entrance hall is long and tall, flanked by niches where guardian deities peer out with almond-shaped eyes. Their forms are symbolic, flat silhouettes that seem both ancient and somehow alive, like they could blink if you looked away. You catch your first real glimpse of the library. Shelves of clay tablets stretch to the ceiling, stacked like stone loaves in a cosmic bakery. Some are wrapped in linen, tagged with bits of coloured thread. Others are naked, row upon row of them, covered in tight rows of wedge-shaped script that seem to hum beneath your gaze. One fact floats into your mind, uninvited but useful. The scribes here don't write with ink. They press styluses into wet clay, letting the sun or hearth harden their thoughts into permanence. That means every word here was once a soft impression made by a steady hand and a patient breath. Somewhere deeper inside, a reed flute plays. No melody, just a drifting scale like wind down a long tunnel. You wander. A narrow corridor leads you to a courtyard open to the night sky. The ziggurat towers beyond, its layered steps rising like a stone mountain, the top swallowed by twilight. Historians still argue whether the ziggurat was a temple or an astronomical observatory. Frankly, it's probably both. A bat flutters overhead. You try not to flinch. Returning inside, you pass two men sitting cross-legged on the floor, comparing two versions of the same myth. One ends in death, the other a wedding. They glance up as you pass but say nothing, just nod, and return to their clay. You arrive at a hall filled with shelves and the warm flicker of oil lamps hanging from thin ropes. A tall man steps forward. His beard is oiled and combed, and his robe is stitched with subtle lapis thread along the collar. He doesn't introduce himself. He simply raises one tablet and says, "This is where we keep time." You blink. It records the movement of Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and all the omens tied to their paths, he says, turning it to show you a series of tiny etched stars and numbers. One night, Venus vanished behind the moon. The next morning, a goat was born with two heads. Coincidence? Perhaps. He chuckles softly. But maybe not. You glance back at the rows of tablets. Somewhere in there, thousands of years of dreams, debts, arguments, and worship sleep side by side. Some tablets describe floods, some curses, some wheat prices. Some might just be ancient grocery lists. Others, entire mythologies. You've arrived, and something tells you you're going to be here a while. You pause at the edge of the tablet hall, unsure where to go first. The space is heavy with stillness, as if even the dust knows to tread softly here. Somewhere behind you, a tablet slides softly back into place, stacked by unseen hands. Or maybe that was your imagination. Either way, you breathe a little slower now. You wander past a shelf labelled with a small clay tag marked with a cuneiform star. The star means divine, someone once told you. This row is filled with mythic epics, tales of gods walking among kings, of love spells carved into the walls of shrines, of monsters hunted in sleep. Your fingers graze the edges of one rectangular tablet. It's warm from the ambient hearth glow. The wedge marks on it seem unusually delicate, like someone had taken their time, like it mattered more than usual. When you look closer, you realize this one tells the dream of Etana, the shepherd king, who rode an eagle to the heavens in search of a cure for his wife's infertility. A myth, sure, but tonight it feels more like a memory whispered back through time. You seat yourself cross-legged beside a cluster of tablets and scrolls. A gentle clink of clay and reed echoes nearby, someone arranging materials. The scribe? Or another visitor like you? As you begin to read, a curious fact floats into your thoughts. Cuneiform, with all its ancient authority, started as simple bookkeeping. Tax records. Who owed what barley to whom? And yet here it is, now capturing dreams and constellations and divine decrees. Proof, maybe, that even bureaucracy has its poetry. Your eyes drift to a clay tablet, half wrapped in reed matting. Carefully, you unroll the edges, revealing a story written in overlapping columns. This one's older, maybe Sumerian. You can't read it, but you can trace the shapes. One repeating symbol catches your eye. A stylized horned figure. A god, perhaps? Your mind fills in the blanks. A story unfolds. A temple girl dreams of a desert lion with wings. It asks her to steal a sacred bowl from the altar and bury it beneath a tamarisk tree. She does, and the rains return after a decade-long drought. The elders never find out, but the tree bears fruit in every season for the rest of her life. It's not written on the tablet, not explicitly, but the symbols, the placement, the rhythm of the script, they all suggest it. Reading in here is less about translation, more about intuition or possession. A breeze snakes in from the open courtyard, lifting a corner of a scroll. You turn toward it, and this section of the library is lit entirely by small floor-level hearths. Their flames flicker low and orange, casting upward shadows on the walls. On one, the shape of a bull and a star seem to dance, projected by some artifact's geometry. One scribe sits barefoot nearby, sketching something onto a waxboard. It looks like a map, or maybe a star chart. He mutters numbers to himself in Old Babylonian. He catches your glance. "You ever see a sky with no light but fire?" he says. You think about it. Modern city haze, LED clocks, street lamps. "No," you answer. He grins. "Then you've never seen a real night." He points to a tablet beside you, half covered in soot. That one predicted the lunar eclipse of Hammurabi's 5th year. It also said an ox would be born with no ears. One of those happened. There it is again. That Mesopotamian mixture of astronomy and omen, of math and mystery. Historians still argue whether they were scientists observing celestial patterns or priests trying to decode the language of angry gods. You suspect both are true. The tablet you pick up next feels oddly warm. Perhaps it was just near a flame, or maybe some tablets really do retain the heat of the stories they carry. It's an excerpt from the Epic of Gilgamesh. You recognize the name Enkidu. You remember this tale. The wild man brought into the city, his transformation from beast to friend, his death, Gilgamesh's grief. You murmur part of it aloud. The words come slowly, like from a dream you half remember. A chill travels up your arms. You blink. It records the movement of Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and all the omens tied to their paths, he says, turning it to show you a series of tiny etched stars and numbers. One night, Venus vanished behind the moon. The next morning, a goat was born with 2 heads. Coincidence? Perhaps. He chuckles softly. But maybe not. You glance back at the rows of tablets. Somewhere in there, thousands of years of dreams, debts, arguments, and worship sleep side by side. Some tablets describe floods, some curses, some wheat prices. Some might just be ancient grocery lists. Others? Entire mythologies. You've arrived. And something tells you you're going to be here a while. You pause at the edge of the tablet hall, unsure where to go first. The space is heavy with stillness, as if even the dust knows to tread softly here. Somewhere behind you, a tablet slides softly back into place, stacked by unseen hands. Or maybe that was your imagination. Either way, you breathe a little slower now. You wander past a shelf, labelled with a small clay tag, marked with a cuneiform star. The star means divine, someone once told you. This row is filled with mythic epics, tales of gods walking among kings, of love spells carved into the walls of shrines, of monsters hunted in sleep. Your fingers graze the edges of one rectangular tablet. It's warm from the ambient hearth glow. The wedge marks on it seem unusually delicate, like someone had taken their time, like it mattered more than usual. When you look closer, you realize this one tells the dream of Etana, the shepherd king who rode an eagle to the heavens in search of a cure for his wife's infertility. A myth, sure, but tonight it feels more like a memory whispered back through time. You seat yourself cross-legged beside a cluster of tablets and scrolls. A gentle clink of clay and reed echoes nearby, someone arranging materials. The scribe, or another visitor like you. As you begin to read, a curious fact floats into your thoughts. Cuneiform, with all its ancient authority, started as simple bookkeeping. Tax records. Who owed what barley to whom? And yet here it is, now capturing dreams and constellations and divine decrees. Proof, maybe, that even bureaucracy has its poetry. Your eyes drift to a clay tablet, half wrapped in reed matting. Carefully, you unroll the edges, revealing a story written in overlapping columns. This one's older, maybe Sumerian. You can't read it, but you can trace the shapes. One repeating symbol catches your eye. A stylized horned figure. A god, perhaps. Your mind fills in the blanks. A story unfolds. A temple girl dreams of a desert lion with wings. It asks her to steal a sacred bowl from the altar and bury it beneath a tamarisk tree. She does, and the rains return after a decade-long drought. The elders never find out, but the tree bears fruit in every season for the rest of her life. It's not written on the tablet, not explicitly, but the symbols, the placement, the rhythm of the script, they all suggest it. Reading in here is less about translation, more about intuition, or possession. A breeze snakes in from the open courtyard, lifting a corner of a scroll. You turn toward it. This section of the library is lit entirely by small floor-level hearths. Their flames flicker low and orange, casting upward shadows on the walls. On one, the shape of a bull and a star seem to dance, projected by some artifact's geometry. One scribe sits barefoot nearby, sketching something onto a waxboard. It looks like a map, or maybe a star chart. He mutters numbers to himself in Old Babylonian. He catches your glance. "You ever see a sky with no light but fire?" he says. You think about it. Modern city haze, LED clocks, street lamps. "No," you answer. He grins. "Then you've never seen a real night." He points to a tablet beside you, half covered in soot. That one predicted the lunar eclipse of Hammurabi's 5th year. It also said an ox would be born, with no ears. One of those happened. There it is again. That Mesopotamian mixture of astronomy and omen, of math and mystery. Historians still argue whether they were scientists observing celestial patterns, or priests trying to decode the language of angry gods. You suspect both are true. The tablet you pick up next feels oddly warm. Perhaps it was just near a flame, or maybe some tablets really do retain the heat of the stories they carry. It's an excerpt from the Epic of Gilgamesh. You recognize the name Enkidu. You remember this tale, the wild man brought into the city, his transformation from beast to friend, his death, Gilgamesh's grief. You murmur part of it aloud. The words come slowly, like from a dream you half remember. A chill travels up your arms. And then, the bell. A soft, bronze chime somewhere deep in the building. You barely register it at first, but the others do. The scribe stops writing. One of the shadowed figures in the far aisle rises, wrapping their tablet in cloth and bowing toward a central pillar before vanishing between shelves. The bell rings again. You rise slowly and follow them, careful not to disturb the sleeping words around you. Through another low archway, you step into the inner library sanctum. It is darker here. The walls are smooth, plastered, and painted with abstract spirals and star clusters. Clay pipes run through the ceiling, air vents perhaps, or conduits for the voices of the gods. In the centre of the room stands a great basalt table. Upon it rests a massive circular tablet, divided into concentric rings, an astronomical chart. A woman in a silver-threaded robe stands at its edge. Her hands hover over the tablet, but do not touch. She turns. "Welcome," she says simply. "This is the dreaming wheel." You glance at the stone circle. Symbols spin in your mind, even though the tablet itself remains still. A bull, a fish, a scorpion, a bow, zodiacal signs, but not Greek. Older, rooted in the heavens of Akkad. You step closer. The woman gestures to a seat. Some say these signs were meant to guide the destinies of kings. Others believe they tell us how to find our way back when the gods forget our names. You sit. The warmth from the basalt seeps into your skin. It smells faintly of oil and dust and something unnameable, like time, maybe. And in this silence you begin to dream. Not asleep, not awake, but somewhere between the stars. Your eyes blink slow. You're not entirely sure how long you've been sitting in front of the dreaming wheel. The scribe with the star map is gone now. The air feels thicker, like a curtain has been drawn, not of cloth, but of meaning. The woman with the silver-threaded robe steps away from the chart and vanishes without sound, her presence dissipating like ink in water. You're alone, but the library feels attentive. You stand again, carefully, and retrace your steps back through the inner sanctum's doorway, your fingers grazing the cool stone arch as you pass. The sound of soft chanting rises from a hallway to your left. Not liturgy, more like memorization, syllables repeated in rhythm. You follow it. Down the corridor, you discover a scriptorium, a long rectangular room lined with low benches. Young apprentice scribes sit with waxboards and styluses, copying lines under the supervision of an older man with an eagle tattoo inked onto his arm. That bird again, Etana's guide, or perhaps a crest of Ashur himself. You observe from the doorway. None of them look up. Their tongues move silently as they trace symbols you can barely comprehend, yet you recognize the trance they're in. It's the same state you fall into when you're reading a book you can't put down, or scribbling dreams before they slip away. The head scribe catches you watching. He nods slightly, then points toward a clay jar beside him. "Ink of the black reed," he says. "If you write dreams in it, the gods will read them too." You smile, unsure if he's joking. He doesn't smile back. A historical note floats to the surface of your mind. This was how Mesopotamian boys, usually sons of elites or priests, learned to write. Years of repetition, copying proverbs and royal decrees onto clay until the signs became second nature. Many tablets we've found are just practice runs, exercises, names of kings scrawled like doodles. You drift closer and glimpse one student's board. It reads, "The road is long. The ox is tired. The moon sees all." Whether it's a proverb or a personal poem, you can't tell. Maybe it doesn't matter. One apprentice sneezes. The others look annoyed, but say nothing. You whisper, "Bless you," under your breath. Moving on, you pass into a quieter chamber where finished scrolls and bound reeds are stored in clay cubbies. A domed ceiling rises above you, painted with a sunburst made of lapis blue and tarnished gold. You count the rays. 13, not 12. Historians still debate whether the Mesopotamians adhered strictly to a 12-month calendar or floated between systems. Either way, their months were lunar, tied to observations of the night sky and agricultural necessity. Time was a rhythm, not a rule. As you step further in, your shadow lengthens. The lamps in this part of the library are fewer, flickering low on their wicks. Their smell reminds you of sesame oil and burnt reeds. A soft ticking sound echoes near the far wall. You find the source. A blind man sits cross-legged before a large rotating cylinder made of wood and clay. He turns it slowly with both hands, letting the inscribed surface pass beneath his fingers. It's like a scroll, but cylindrical, like the famous Mesopotamian cylinder seals. The entire surface is carved in tight, elegant script. "Is it a story?" you ask. He nods. "It's the river." You wait. A log of floods and droughts, offerings, and the births of calves. The river tells us who we were, year by year. You kneel beside him. His eyes are milk white, but his fingers are sure. "You don't need eyes to see memory," he says. That line sticks with you. You watch the cylinder turn, fascinated. Each tiny wedge-shaped impression is more than a letter. It's a moment. A whisper pressed into clay by hands long vanished. You wonder how many dreams live in this room, how many fears, how many whispered apologies or offerings scribbled in haste. You suddenly remember a fringe fact, barely mentioned in formal histories. There were tablets of spells meant to stop ghosts from whispering in your ear while you slept. Protective charms to prevent bad dreams. People feared being visited by spirits who died unburied or unloved. They believed writing could trap them, pin their whispers to stone. No wonder this place feels alive. Back out in the wider hall, the library opens again into a spacious room with arched windows looking over the darkened garden. There's a pool below, faintly reflecting moonlight through the high canopy of date palms. You can hear frogs. You approach the window. Below, a girl walks with a tray, balancing tiny clay cups filled with honey water and oil. She stops beside a small statue, Ishtar, maybe, or Nisaba, goddess of writing, and tips one cup into a bowl at its feet. An offering. You can't hear what she whispers, but her face is soft with reverence. You look again at the stars above the garden. One bright point pulses at the edge of the horizon. Jupiter, maybe, or Nibiru, the wandering star of omens. The ancients were expert astronomers, not just stargazers, but recorders of patterns and meanings. They tracked eclipses, planetary movements, and stellar alignments on clay so meticulously that modern researchers still refer to Babylonian records when backtracking the orbits of celestial bodies. You lean your forehead against the cool window frame. The silence hums in your ears. Back in the library, a group of elders begin singing. Low, slow, wordless tones that blend with the architecture, like the building itself is humming along. A night hymn, perhaps, or just a ritual to close the day. You sit beneath a column carved with vines and stars. The night is deep now, deeper than the shadow behind a torch, deeper than sleep. And still, you are not tired. There's another room ahead, its doorway flanked by stone lions and cloaked in hanging reeds. You can just make out the edge of a tablet, glowing faintly beyond it. And so you rise once more. Because in Ashur's library, every room is a door. You pass under the hanging reeds and into the next chamber, the lion guardians flanking your entry with eternal snarls. Their mouths are carved open, not in threat, but in warning. Or is it laughter? It's hard to tell with lions, even the stone ones. Inside, the space is cooler. The walls are inset with clay niches, and in each one, a tablet glows softly with lamplight, like stars tucked into cubbyholes. You can feel the dust before you smell it, that dry, ancient aroma of scorched earth and oil-treated parchment. Somehow, it's oddly comforting, like the scent of an attic full of secrets. A woman in a turquoise shawl, another scribe, older than the last, glances at you from where she's crouched, her stylus hovering just above the surface of a fresh tablet. "Do you read the language of the gods?" she asks, one eyebrow raised. You think for a moment, then shake your head. "Not fluently?" She grins. "No one does. That's the trick." She gestures toward the nearest shelf. "Take one," she says. "It'll choose you." You hesitate. Then your hand moves toward the middle row, brushing gently past a cracked tablet with 3 bird-like symbols etched into its top corner. The tablet is cool, and heavier than you expect. The surface is covered in tight, spiraling lines of cuneiform, pressed with such care they almost look painted. You carry it to the woman. "What does it say?" She peers at it, then chuckles. This one's about a tree that dreamed it could fly. It kept asking the birds how, and they kept telling it to stop trying. You sit cross-legged beside her and listen as she reads it aloud, slow and rhythmic. Her voice has a cadence that echoes the rustle of palms outside and the slow pulse of the Tigris. The story is simple, parable-like. The tree eventually grows so tall it scrapes the sky, and when it finally stops trying to be a bird, a flock nests in its highest branches. Somewhere in the story, your breathing slows. Your thoughts uncoil. She pauses. This one's from the library at Nineveh originally, brought here before the fall. A refugee tablet. A mainstream fact surfaces. The library of Ashur in Nineveh was one of the greatest collections of ancient knowledge, rivaling even what came later in Alexandria. Thousands of tablets catalogued with stunning precision, covering everything from omen lists to dream dictionaries. You remember one strange fringe tidbit. They even kept a tablet describing how to interpret a sneeze. If you sneezed while exiting your house, it meant good fortune. If someone else sneezed behind you, doom. The ancients didn't take bodily noises lightly. You hold the tablet a moment longer. Somehow it feels warm now. The older scribe looks up. The gods don't write in thunder, they write in slow things, stone, river curves, bark. You nod, not entirely sure what she means, but unwilling to break the stillness. The next tablet you try is thicker. The characters are larger, bolder. She explains it's a royal edict, something about land grants to scribes who served the palace loyally. They earned stories with their silence, she adds. Imagine being paid in plots of barley for knowing when not to speak. You make a mental note. Silence was a form of currency here. Not bad advice for bedtime. You wander again. A recessed hallway leads you to a narrow reading chamber with low benches and thick cushions. Reed mats line the floor, and another apprentice lies sprawled near a half-finished scroll, snoring softly. A clay bowl of figs sits half-eaten by his side. You sit on a cushion and pull a long scroll from the rack. The reed paper is smoother than clay, warm to the touch. The illustrations are delicate, tiny ink depictions of animals and stars beside short passages. You realize you're holding something rare, a bestiary. Each animal has a name and a description. There's the lion, bringer of the sunset. There's a fish that whispers in reeds at midnight. There's even a mythical beast that looks suspiciously like a hedgehog with wings. You laugh, softly. Your voice sounds strange in here. Across the room, a scholar stirs. His head rises from a pile of tablets. He squints at you. The scroll says they sing to plants, you say, holding it up. He nods. So do I. You smile. Do they respond? They wilt, if I'm off key. You both chuckle quietly. Another moment passes. The scribe returns to sleep. You roll the scroll back into its place and rise again. Something tugs at you, a sense of unfinished business. The tablets behind you feel sleepy. The room seems to exhale, gently, as you step into the next corridor. Here, the floor slopes downward. You descend into what feels like the oldest part of the complex. The air changes. It's not musty. It's mineral, like cold water and bone. The hallway is lined with door frames, each leading to a narrow chamber where light flickers. As you pass one, you glimpse a man kneeling before a bowl, chanting softly. In another, two children play a game with marked stones, keeping score with lines scratched into the dirt floor. Then, one door glows blue, just slightly, faintly, enough to draw your feet toward it. Inside is a single pedestal. Atop it rests a round clay tablet, darker than the others, almost obsidian. You approach slowly. The inscriptions are finer here, spiraling inward, like a labyrinth. You lean close. At the center is a single image, a star inside a fish. You feel something shift in your chest. You don't know why, but it's familiar. Maybe from a dream. Maybe from a memory that wasn't yours. You don't touch it, you just look. Then, from the shadows behind the pedestal, a voice, old and gravel-soft, says, "That one doesn't speak. It listens." You turn. No one's there. When you look back, the tablet is gone. But the pedestal is still warm. You back away, slowly. You don't run. That would be rude. And foolish. Back in the corridor, you take a breath and find your footing. The floor here hums slightly. Or maybe it's your heartbeat. You glance back once, just once, and then you walk on. Because in the library of Ashur, even silence has a library of its own. You find yourself in a wide chamber where reed lamps hang low from wooden beams, casting flickering shadows over stacks of tablets, piled like ancient bricks. The air is thick with the scent of baked clay and the faint, sweet smell of date wine left from an earlier ceremony. Along the walls, tall shelves, carved from mud brick, rise toward the ceiling, each packed with tablets arranged by topic: astronomy, law, myth, medicine. The arrangement seems orderly, but also deliberately overwhelming, as if to remind visitors of the vastness of human knowledge and the gods' inscrutable will. A young scribe sits cross-legged on a reed mat, meticulously copying a tablet by lamplight. His hands are steady but tired, his eyes reflecting the orange glow as he presses stylus to soft clay. You watch as the cuneiform symbols take shape, wedges and lines pressed with care, an ancient language that felt impossibly distant but also oddly intimate in this quiet space. This scribe isn't just recording history, he's weaving it into the future. You remember reading that cuneiform was originally invented for accounting, simple records of grain and livestock, and then blossomed into the language of gods and kings. The same marks that counted barley now tell stories of creation and the stars. Funny how that works. It's like inventing Instagram as a way to track your grocery list. The scribe pauses and looks at you, his eyes bright despite exhaustion. "You know," he whispers, "some tablets are curses disguised as prayers. They say one word wrong, and misfortune will follow the reader like a shadow." You raise an eyebrow, half believing, half amused. Imagine reading a bedtime story and ending up hexed for life. He chuckles softly. You wander further, passing through arches carved with palm fronds and geometric patterns. The walls are textured, a mix of baked mud and worn plaster, giving the impression that the library itself is a living organism, breathing with stories. Near the back, you find a group of scribes clustered around a low table, tracing star charts onto wet clay. They murmur about the movements of Venus and the moon, trying to predict eclipses. Historians still debate whether these celestial records were strictly religious or the world's first scientific observations. But here, it feels like both. A divine dance etched in clay. One scribe catches your gaze and gestures you closer. He points to a tablet with a finely etched image of a winged figure holding a tablet. "That's Nisaba, goddess of writing," he explains. "Without her, none of this would exist." You lean in, tracing the simple lines of her wings and the stylized grains she holds. It strikes you how much reverence this culture gave to the act of writing itself. More than just words on clay, writing was magic, power, and preservation of souls. At the same moment, a strange thought crosses your mind. What if the tablets are dreams, frozen in time? Cuneiform, dreams that wait for the right reader to awaken them. The chamber grows quiet except for the soft scrape of styluses and distant whispers. You notice a faint border of cuneiform symbols running along the top of the shelves, almost like a protective spell or a secret code inviting you deeper. You sit on a wooden bench, letting the warm orange glow wash over you, feeling the pulse of history settle like dust in the air. And somehow, despite the centuries and the silence, you feel connected, not just to the scribes and kings, but to the ancient heartbeats of a world that still whispers beneath the stars. You slip deeper into the library's quiet shadows, the soft crunch of your sandals against baked earth, the only sound interrupting the stillness. Flickering reed lamps cast dancing silhouettes on the walls, their orange light mingling with deep indigo shadows, like a slow-moving tapestry. Around you, tablets tower in precarious stacks, each one a tiny universe of symbols, pressing secrets into the clay. You approach a low table, where an older scribe is hunched over a large tablet, etching carefully with a sharpened reed stylus. His fingers tremble slightly, but the symbols he presses into the damp clay are sharp and confident. The timeless cuneiform alphabet, flowing from his practiced hand. You recognize the tablet's subject, a mythic tale about the goddess Inanna's descent into the underworld, told with elegant simplicity and mystery. You watch as the story comes alive in symbols, each wedge a silent word that carries both power and poetry. It's fascinating to realize that these tablets were often used as teaching tools. Scribes in training copied the great myths and hymns repeatedly to memorize the sacred lore. They weren't just writing, they were performing a ritual of preservation, binding the stories tightly to memory and time. You can almost hear the whispered chants of students reciting these ancient epics under their breath in the dim candlelight. You pause for a moment to marvel at the cleverness behind the writing system itself. Cuneiform began as pictograms but gradually evolved into abstract wedge shapes, a kind of shorthand that made complex ideas easier to capture. But here's a quirky thought. Some scholars suggest that certain scribes deliberately inserted small mistakes or secret signs to mark their own work, like a medieval artist's hidden signature. Imagine accidentally stumbling on a 4,000-year-old scribble that's basically the world's first graffiti. Your gaze drifts upward to the vaulted ceiling, where faded frescoes depict celestial bodies, surrounded by zigzagging rivers and palm altul. These decorations reflect the ancient Mesopotamian worldview. The heavens above mirrored the earthly order below. The scribe's nightly work wasn't just record-keeping, it was a way to understand their place in the cosmos, a blend of spirituality and early science. Historians still argue whether these star charts served more for religious ceremony or practical astrology, but in this hushed sanctuary, the lines blur beautifully. A young apprentice suddenly breaks your reverie, offering you a small reed scroll inscribed with detailed instructions on how to prepare a sacred oil mixture used in temple rituals. The scent of frankincense and myrrh seems to waft from the parchment itself, weaving a sensory thread through the amber-lit air. You run your fingers over the symbols, feeling the rough texture and wondering how many hands have traced this same path before you. You take a deep breath, settling into the timeless rhythm of the library's night. Outside, the Tigris River murmurs quietly, but here the pulse is slower, gentler, a place where stories and stars intertwine, and the past waits patiently for your attention. You find yourself drawn to a large, elaborately carved clay tablet resting on a wooden stand near the library's centre. The tablet glows faintly in the soft lamplight, its surface covered with precise, linear, cuneiform symbols arranged in neat columns. This is no ordinary record. It's an astronomical text, a detailed star catalogue used by Mesopotamian priests to track the movement of planets and stars. As you lean closer, the air fills with the faint scent of burnt oil and crushed herbs, a subtle reminder of the temple rituals intertwined with scholarly study. The ancient Mesopotamians believed the heavens were a living reflection of divine will, and their priests were tasked with interpreting these celestial messages. It's humbling to imagine these early astronomers charting the skies without telescopes, relying on patient observation and meticulous notation. You notice peculiar marks alongside the cuneiform, tiny stars and crescents, almost like doodles, but scholars suspect these symbols carried hidden meanings, perhaps used to highlight important celestial events or to ward off bad omens. This blend of science and superstition weaves through every aspect of life here, making the library not just a place of knowledge, but a spiritual heart. Nearby, a scribe softly recites a poem dedicated to the goddess Nana, patron of the moon, his voice barely above a whisper. The rhythm of his chant mingles with the crackling of the oil lamps, creating a hypnotic lullaby that seems to suspend time. You realize this quiet recital is both a prayer and a mnemonic device, helping scribes remember vast amounts of information through artful verse. As you trace the delicate patterns carved into the tablet's edges, you recall that cuneiform was not just used for grand myths or star charts. It recorded everyday transactions, laws, and even witty proverbs. One particularly amusing one claims, "A lazy scribe's tablet will never dry." You chuckle quietly, imagining a scribal apprentice procrastinating with ink-stained fingers. Historians continue to debate how widespread literacy truly was in ancient Mesopotamia. Was reading and writing confined to elite scribes, or did merchants and farmers also learn the basics? The library itself stands as a testament to knowledge's power, yet also its rarity. As you settle back on a woven mat, the amber glow envelops you like a warm blanket. Outside, the moon rises over the palm trees, its pale light mixing with the lamplight inside. You feel a quiet peace here, surrounded by the silent stories etched in clay, whispers of a civilization reaching across millennia to touch your imagination. You rise quietly from the mat, careful not to disturb the other scribes who remain engrossed in their work, and make your way toward a narrow corridor lined with towering shelves. Here, the library's most fragile and precious scrolls rest, their reed paper surfaces delicately rolled and tied with faded cords. The texture of the reeds is almost tangible, and you imagine the hands that painstakingly harvested and prepared them, weaving together knowledge like threads in a tapestry. The ambient orange glow from oil lamps casts flickering shadows that dance across the worn scrolls, making the ancient script shimmer like liquid gold. You gently unroll a scroll and find yourself reading a poetic tale of the goddess Ishtar's descent into the underworld, her courage and sacrifice echoing through the ages. This myth, told and retold in whispered voices, reminds you of the timeless human themes woven into Mesopotamian stories: love, loss, power, and renewal. A subtle aroma of myrrh drifts from a nearby incense burner, mingling with the scent of aged papyrus and earth. The priests believed that such fragrances helped purify the mind and invite divine inspiration. Watching the curling smoke, you feel transported, as if these sacred scents bridge the gap between mortal scribes and the gods themselves. In a quiet alcove, a young apprentice practices the ancient art of cuneiform on a clay tablet. His fingers move with deliberate care, pressing the stylus to the soft surface in neat, wedge-shaped impressions. You recall that the earliest cuneiform was developed as a practical tool for record-keeping, evolving over centuries into a complex system capable of expressing poetry and philosophy. Historians still debate whether cuneiform was originally invented by the Sumerians or influenced by earlier writing systems from neighbouring cultures. Regardless, it remains one of humanity's earliest and most enduring legacies. The apprentice pauses and looks up, catching your eye. He smiles shyly before returning to his work, unaware that you carry the stories of his world in your mind now, a bridge between past and present. As you move deeper into the library's labyrinth, the soft murmur of whispered prayers and quiet footsteps blend with the distant rush of the Tigris River outside, weaving a symphony of sound and silence that soothes your soul. You step into a wider chamber, where the walls are lined with towering shelves crammed full of clay tablets, their reddish-brown surfaces etched with countless wedge-shaped symbols. Each tablet tells a story: laws, trade records, astronomical observations, and epic poetry, all preserved through the ages in this temple library of Ashur. The tablets are stacked like ancient bricks, forming silent walls of accumulated wisdom. A faint hum of chanting echoes softly from a distant corner, where a group of scribes gathers around a low table, translating celestial omens recorded by their predecessors. Their voices, gentle and reverent, create a lullaby of knowledge that drifts through the room, wrapping you in its soothing embrace. The cuneiform signs seem to shimmer in the soft glow of oil lamps, as if alive with secrets waiting to be unlocked. You watch as one scribe delicately brushes dust off a tablet with a fine reed brush, revealing an intricate star chart etched with remarkable precision. The Babylonians, your mind recalls, were pioneers in astronomy, cataloguing planets and constellations with surprising accuracy for their time. They believed the heavens were a divine script, a cosmic message to be deciphered by the wise. Near the centre of the room stands a large wooden desk, its surface cluttered with reed pens, ink pots, and fragments of broken tablets. A senior scribe, his robes dusted with clay, gently copies a passage from an ancient epic, his stylus moving with practiced ease. He pauses to sip fragrant date wine, savouring the sweet taste as if to toast the gods who inspired his work. The air is thick with the scent of lamp oil, ink, and old parchment, mingling with the faint aroma of blooming date palms from the courtyard beyond. The interplay of shadows and light creates a calm, almost dreamlike atmosphere, perfect for quiet contemplation. You notice small cuneiform inscriptions decorating the edges of the shelves, like whispered messages from generations past. These subtle motifs frame the room, reminding you that writing here is not just record-keeping, but a sacred ritual connecting human memory with the divine. Historians still argue whether these libraries served primarily as scholarly centres or as temples of worship. But tonight, surrounded by the gentle murmurs of scribes and the warm glow of lamps, it feels like both. You settle into a low cushion beside a stack of tablets, ready to lose yourself in the stories whispered by the clay, as the night deepens and the world outside fades away. The flickering lamplight casts long shadows across the intricate patterns carved into the wooden beams overhead. You move deeper into the library, where a narrow corridor leads to a secluded alcove, a sanctuary for the most precious texts, myths of gods and goddesses, tales that blur the line between history and legend. Here, the air feels heavier with reverence, as if the stories themselves hold the breath of the divine. A young scribe, barely older than a boy, sits cross-legged on the floor, reading aloud softly from a clay tablet. His voice is barely above a whisper, yet the words resonate with the weight of millennia. The love and battles of Inanna, the descent into the underworld, the creation myths whispered by the river gods. You can almost hear the rustling of date palms and the babbling of the Tigris as the tales unfold. The walls around you are adorned with faded frescoes, their colours muted by time but still vivid enough to reveal scenes of ritual dances, celestial symbols, and ziggurats reaching toward the heavens. You spot delicate cuneiform inscriptions bordering the frescoes, tiny like whispers of forgotten prayers etched by long-gone hands. You lean in closer to a tablet, resting on a stone pedestal, noticing the peculiar shape of some signs, wedge marks pressed at odd angles, which scholars debate as possible musical notation or even secret messages between scribes. It's one of those quirks of ancient script that adds a layer of mystery to the already enigmatic world of cuneiform. As the night deepens, you feel the quiet rhythm of the library, pages turning, fingers tracing the grooves of the tablets, occasional soft sighs of wonder or discovery. The scribe's voice drifts into a melodic cadence, the story weaving a spell that blurs the line between dream and memory. Outside, the stars shimmer faintly through narrow windows, a reminder that this sanctuary of knowledge is part of a cosmos much larger and more mysterious than any earthly palace or temple. Historians still debate whether the library of Ashur was more than a storehouse, perhaps a living centre of learning, spirituality, and power all at once. For now, you simply breathe in the ancient wisdom and let the stories carry you further into the night. You settle into a low stone bench near a window carved with delicate patterns, the faint light from a flickering oil lamp making the dust particles dance like tiny fireflies. The scent of beeswax and aged papyrus fills the air, mingling with the faint, earthy aroma of the clay tablets stacked neatly around you like ancient bricks. It's a sensory cocoon, one that makes time feel slow and thick, almost tangible. A senior scribe approaches, his fingers stained with ink and clay dust, and offers you a reed brush dipped in a dark, viscous ink. He motions for you to try your hand at making impressions on a fresh clay tablet. As you press the stylus into the soft surface, you feel a surprising connection to those long-ago scribes who first carved the cuneiform signs, symbols that would become the foundation of written language itself. It's a delicate art, requiring both precision and rhythm, like a calligraphy dance on clay. Nearby, another scribe is hunched over a long scroll of reed paper, inked with detailed astronomical charts. You watch as she carefully marks the position of stars and planets, a reminder of Mesopotamia's deep fascination with the heavens. These early astronomers used their knowledge to predict floods, seasons, and even omens, blending science and spirituality in a way that still fascinates scholars today. You can't help but smile at the thought that your own starry nights have much in common with theirs, though your tools are glow screens and satellites instead of reed brushes and clay tablets. As the night deepens, whispers float around you, half-remembered myths, whispered prayers, scribbled notes on trade and law. This library is alive, breathing through the ages, a place where the past converses softly with the present. And as you rest your hand on a cool tablet, you realize the true magic of this place. It's a vault, not just of knowledge, but of human curiosity and hope. Remember that strange practice of divining omens from barley grains? Here, in the shadowed corners, You see the faint marks of scribes who might have recorded such rituals, blending the mundane and the mystical in one seamless tapestry. Historians still argue whether these libraries were open to all or reserved for the elite few, but tonight, as you sit surrounded by whispered secrets, you feel like a silent participant in that ancient circle of knowledge. You rise from your stone bench, the tablet still cool in your hands, and move deeper into the library's labyrinthine corridors. The walls here are lined with niches, each crammed with stacks of clay tablets, reed scrolls, and wooden styluses resting on woven mats. Flickering oil lamps cast elongated shadows that seem to dance in rhythm with your footsteps, the soft orange glow making everything feel like a secret whispered through time. A faint hum reaches your ears, a soft chant in the background, almost like a lullaby sung by the temple's acolytes. It's the hymn to Nabu, the god of writing and wisdom, whose divine inspiration has guided scribes for generations. You wonder if the scribes believed their work was truly inspired by divine forces, or if it was simply their own human brilliance, cloaked in reverence. Historians still debate how intertwined religion and scholarship really were in these ancient walls. Nearby, a scribe delicately unwraps a freshly baked tablet from a wooden mould, the imprint of cuneiform signs sharp and glistening in the lamplight. He traces each wedge-shaped character with reverence, like reading a letter from the past. You realize that these signs are more than just symbols. They are stories, laws, astronomical data and prayers, all etched into clay to withstand time's relentless erosion. You catch sight of a tiny figure, a child of the temple perhaps, sitting cross-legged by the corner, practicing his first attempts at cuneiform. His stylus trembles as he tries to form the right angles and lines, but you can already see the spark of curiosity in his eyes, the same spark that must have driven humanity's first attempts at writing. Your fingers brush over a large tablet nearby, its surface worn, but the inscription still clear. It's a hymn to Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, weaving passion and power into words. It strikes you how these ancient texts blend beauty and utility in a way modern writing rarely does. Between the stacks, small bowls of fragrant oils and incense hint at the rituals performed here to invoke clarity and wisdom. The scent curls around you, making the quiet hum of the scribes feel like a heartbeat beneath the silence. As you pause by a low table, a scribe offers you a reed pen and invites you to copy a line from an astronomical text. The stars and planets recorded here guided farmers, priests, and kings, a celestial calendar carved into earthly clay. It's humbling to think that this ancient knowledge was passed down through centuries, a bridge between the heavens and the human world. Remember that bit about the earliest known libraries being part storage, part temple? This place feels like both, a sacred space where knowledge was worshipped and guarded. The debate among scholars about how much of this knowledge was secret and how much was shared in the wider community bubbles in your mind. But right now, all you feel is the warmth of lamplight, the scent of clay and ink, and the quiet pulse of wisdom alive in every carved wedge. You step further into the heart of the library, where the stacks rise taller, almost crowding the narrow aisles into shadowed canyons of knowledge. The air here feels thicker, rich with the scent of dried reeds and aged clay, the faint crackle of flickering lamps mingling with the soft scratch of styluses on tablets. It's as if time itself slows down in this sanctum, letting you drift among echoes of stories long past. A delicate scroll catches your eye. its papyrus-like texture worn and fragile, adorned with faint cuneiform script in deep black ink. You imagine the careful hands that once inscribed this, dipping reed pens into inky pools, their fingers stained with dedication. These scrolls, unlike the clay tablets, are more vulnerable, their fragility matched by the ephemeral nature of memory and oral tradition. Nearby, a young scribe leans over his workbench, his brows furrowed in concentration as he meticulously copies an epic tale about Gilgamesh. The poem's timeless themes, friendship, loss, and the search for immortality ripple through you, reminding you that human desires have changed little over the millennia. You pause to touch a small amulet resting on a shelf beside a tablet, a carved figure of the god Nabu holding a stylus. It's said that scribes carried these talismans for protection and divine inspiration, a quirky ritual that mixed faith with the anxiety of getting every wedge right. Historians still debate how much scribes believed in such charms versus the steady practice that honed their skill. The glow from hanging lamps reflects off the polished clay tablets stacked like miniature walls. The tablets form an endless city of knowledge, their edges chipped from centuries of handling, each one a window into ancient lives, from mundane receipts for grain to elaborate astronomical charts predicting the movements of Venus and Jupiter. You hear a soft murmur nearby, a scribe reading aloud in a hushed voice. The words flow rhythmically, almost hypnotic, recounting the birth of the universe according to the Enuma Elish, where the chaotic waters of Tiamat give way to ordered creation. The imagery is vivid, like watching a cosmic dance in slow motion, the universe born in fire and clay. In the corner, a wooden box holds fragments of old styluses and ink pots, relics from a time when writing was still young. It strikes you how these humble tools, simple reeds, and clay were the keys to preserving civilization itself. You smile at the thought that something so fragile could carry such weight. As you wander, your fingers brush against an oversized tablet that records a city's annual grain harvest, a crucial piece of administrative magic ensuring the city's survival. It's amazing how record-keeping, something so ordinary today, was a revolutionary leap back then, a way to keep chaos at bay. The room feels alive with whispers, not just the scribes' voices, but the silent dialogue between past and present, between the ink and clay, the stars and the earth. You take a deep breath and settle near a cluster of tablets, the soft lamplight casting long shadows that flicker like ancient spirits. For a moment, the world outside fades, leaving only the quiet pulse of wisdom carved in stone and ink. You move toward a long table cluttered with tablets depicting intricate star charts and planetary paths, evidence of the Mesopotamians' early astronomy. The knowledge encoded here helped them predict seasonal changes, vital for farming and festivals. It's incredible to think these ancient scholars mapped the skies without telescopes, just their eyes, intuition, and cuneiform symbols etched painstakingly in clay. A scribe nearby is tracing over the lines of a tablet, showing the phases of the moon, a ritual calendar intertwined with religious ceremonies. You imagine how the waxing and waning of the moon dictated the rhythm of daily life, like a gentle cosmic metronome guiding prayers, planting and celebrations. The dusty orange glow from oil lamps paints his focused face in soft light, deepening the stillness of the moment. Near a stack of tall reed scrolls, you spot illustrations of gods and goddesses holding symbolic objects. Inanna with her lion, Nabu with his stylus, Enlil with his staff. These divine figures seem to float in the faded colours of ochre, lapis lazuli, and turquoise, their stylized forms carrying stories of power, love, and cosmic order. The library's architecture draws your eye next. Sturdy mud brick walls, layered thick with protective plaster. Narrow windows, letting in just a hint of twilight. The ceiling is wooden, beams darkened by age, holding up the weight of knowledge. Palms sway gently outside, rustling in the evening breeze, while distant voices of river traders drift faintly in. You come across a peculiar tablet. Its script scrambled and irregular. The scribe tells you this is a practice piece, where novices learn to master the complex cuneiform system. It's a messy, human moment amid the solemnity, like a child's first shaky letters in the sand. You pause by a small altar inside the library, adorned with carved figurines and bowls of fragrant oils. Scribes were known to invoke Nabu's blessing before beginning their work, blending spirituality with scholarship in a quiet, respectful tradition. There's an intimacy here you wouldn't expect in a place so filled with knowledge, a reminder that wisdom is also a kind of faith. Historians still argue about the true purpose of some tablets found here, whether they were meant purely for record-keeping, magical incantations, or teaching tools. This uncertainty adds a layer of mystery that makes the library feel more alive, as if every artifact holds a secret waiting to be unlocked. As the night deepens, you find yourself drawn into a story etched in fine detail. A myth about the goddess Ishtar's journey through the underworld. The narrative unfolds slowly, her descent marked by the removal of each divine garment. A powerful metaphor for vulnerability and transformation. The images seem to flicker in the lamplight, like shadows of an ancient play. You lean back, letting the ancient voices wash over you. Here, amid the quiet murmurs and amber light, the library becomes a bridge across millennia, carrying whispers of human hope, fear, and wonder. The heavy scent of cedar and myrrh oils fills the air as you approach a small alcove, where an elder scribe carefully unrolls a delicate reed scroll. The scroll reveals a collection of astronomical observations, phases of Venus, eclipses, and star alignments, painstakingly recorded over decades. You marvel at how these early skywatchers, without modern instruments, tracked celestial cycles that still baffle astronomers today. Nearby, a young apprentice copies cuneiform signs with a reed stylus on a soft clay tablet, his hands trembling slightly. His efforts remind you that every masterpiece started as a clumsy attempt, a truth unchanged across time. The apprentice's presence adds a warm humanity to the solemn atmosphere, a reminder that knowledge is a living tradition, passed from one generation to the next. The orange glow from the oil lamps casts flickering shadows across the walls, where symbolic bas-reliefs depict the cosmic order, the heavens above, the earth below, and the waters beneath. You notice figures of the god Anu, symbolizing the sky, and Enki, the god of water and wisdom, their depictions blending spirituality with early science. You catch whispers of a heated debate among the scribes about the purpose of the ziggurat visible through a narrow window. A massive stepped tower rising in the distance, its silhouette etched against the deepening purple sky. Some say it's a temple, others argue it was an ancient observatory, aligning with star patterns to guide rituals and agriculture. This scholarly dispute adds a layer of intrigue to the already rich tapestry of knowledge surrounding you. A peculiar tablet catches your eye. It features a pictorial poem, a rare blend of art and literature, telling a love story between the moon god and a mortal woman. The imagery is stylized, yet emotive, carved with careful strokes that evoke the tender tension of forbidden affection.
You realize how these ancient tales carried not just religious or educational weight, but deep emotional resonance for those who told and heard them. In a quiet corner, reed pens rest beside pots of black ink made from crushed minerals, ready for new tablets to be inscribed. You imagine the scribe's careful strokes, the slow rhythm of stylus meeting clay, the soft, scratching sound that must have filled this space like a whispered conversation. The scent of incense mingles with the faint mustiness of ancient parchment as you explore a niche where ritual objects rest. Small figurines, ceremonial bowls, and intricately carved seals. These items hint at the intimate relationship between scholarship and worship, where learning was inseparable from reverence. As midnight approaches, you find yourself drawn to a large clay tablet depicting the Epic of Gilgamesh. Its heroic figures frozen in time, their stylized forms a testament to storytelling's enduring power. The epic's themes of friendship, mortality, and the search for meaning echo softly in the stillness, bridging the gap between then and now. You settle into the quiet embrace of the library's shadowed aisles, where the past hums gently beneath your fingertips, and every tablet is a whisper of dreams encoded in clay and ink. You wander deeper into the labyrinthine stacks, where towering shelves of clay tablets rise like miniature ziggurats, each one a repository of ancient wisdom. The soft murmur of scribes' voices becomes a soothing lullaby as you trace your fingers along the rough edges of a tablet, inscribed with hymns praising the goddess Inanna. The rhythmic patterns of cuneiform signs seem almost musical, a secret code designed to echo through time. In this dim glow, you notice a curious practice. Some scribes have pressed in small clay tokens into their tablets, tiny symbols that represent commodities like barley, oil, or sheep. These tokens, precursors to writing itself, reveal how commerce and record-keeping sparked the birth of Cuneiform, a fascinating glimpse into the practical origins of language. Nearby, a tall reed scroll depicts star charts, marking the position of the Pleiades cluster. You learn that Mesopotamian astronomers were among the first to map the heavens systematically, developing calendars that governed planting, harvest, and religious festivals. Their celestial observations were so precise that modern scholars still debate how they achieved such accuracy with simple tools. A slender figure moves gracefully, the lead librarian, her fingers gliding over tablets as she selects texts for the night's study. Her deep knowledge of myths and rituals creates an atmosphere thick with reverence. You imagine her voice reciting ancient prayers, each syllable weaving a spell that connects earth to sky, mortal to divine. The scent of freshly crushed lapis lazuli, ground for ink pigments, mingles with the faint aroma of date palm sap, a sweet reminder of the land beyond the library walls. You picture farmers in distant fields, their toil linked to the cycles recorded here. Proof that this sanctuary of knowledge was deeply rooted in everyday life. A whisper drifts by about a mysterious ritual involving the Me tablets, sacred decrees said to contain the divine laws governing society, art, and magic. Historians still debate whether these tablets were literal objects or symbolic ideas, but their presence in the library hints at a worldview where law, religion, and culture are inseparable. You pause before a tablet etched with an elaborate genealogy of kings, priests, and heroes, the names fading, but their legacy enduring. This lineage reminds you that knowledge was power, carefully guarded and passed down to shape the future. As the night deepens, you recline on woven mats, the soft rustle of papyrus scrolls blending with the distant sound of the Tigris River flowing outside. The library's shadows grow longer, but within this sanctuary, time seems to pause, an eternal moment suspended between ink and clay. You rise and follow the lead librarian as she moves toward a quieter chamber, tucked away behind heavy wooden doors, carved with cuneiform inscriptions. Inside, flickering oil lamps cast dancing shadows on walls, adorned with delicate frescoes of sacred animals and celestial beings. This is the heart of the library, the ritual room where texts are consecrated and prepared for study. She carefully unwraps a reed scroll, revealing a hymn to Nana, the moon god, whose phases dictated the rhythm of religious ceremonies and agricultural cycles. You run your fingers gently over the reed fibers, feeling the rough texture beneath your touch, imagining the scribe who meticulously inked each character with a sharpened reed stylus. A faint scent of frankincense mingles with the earthy aroma of clay, lending an almost otherworldly quality to the space.
The librarian explains how incense was burned to purify the air and invite divine presence, a practice still echoed in many spiritual traditions today. You can almost see the smoke spiraling upward, curling like ancient prayers whispered to the gods. Nearby, a small basin filled with water from the sacred Euphrates awaits purification rites. You learn that before handling these precious tablets and scrolls, scribes would cleanse their hands, a ritual blending practicality with reverence, underscoring the sacred status of knowledge itself. You glance at a nearby tablet inscribed with the Epic of Gilgamesh, the legendary king whose tale blends history, myth, and the quest for immortality. The text is worn but powerful, a reminder that storytelling was not mere entertainment, but a way to explore human fears, hopes, and the eternal search for meaning. The librarian's voice softens as she recounts the debate among scholars about whether the library served solely as a repository of knowledge, or also as a training ground for priests, scholars, and astrologers. This dual purpose adds layers of mystery and importance to the place, making it a living centre of learning and spiritual connection. You settle onto a low stool as she reads aloud, her words weaving the ancient melodies of gods and heroes, stars and seasons. The room seems to pulse with the heartbeat of history, a quiet sanctuary where past and present entwine. Outside, the moon rises high over the city of Ashur, its silver light bathing the mud brick walls and palm groves in a soft glow. The city breathes in time with the stories you hear, ancient dreams captured forever in clay and ink. As the librarian's voice fades into a gentle murmur, you find yourself drawn deeper into the rhythm of the library's quiet pulse. The faint scratching of styluses on tablets echoes softly, like a whispered symphony of knowledge. You notice a young apprentice nearby, hunched over a small desk, painstakingly copying symbols onto a fresh clay tablet, his fingers stained with the ink of history. You lean closer, captivated by the precision and patience required to master cuneiform, a script that, while appearing abstract to modern eyes, was once the bridge between gods and mortals. Interestingly, scholars still debate whether the earliest forms of cuneiform were meant primarily for record-keeping, or if they also served magical or divinatory purposes, adding a layer of mystical intrigue to this ancient writing. The apprentice pauses, looking up briefly, and offers a shy smile before returning to his work. His steady hand shapes each wedge and line with care, knowing that every symbol carries meaning beyond words, a connection to the cosmos, to divine will,
and to the everyday lives of people long gone. Around you, shelves rise high, stacked with tablets of all sizes, some detailing mundane economic transactions, others chronicling myths of creation, love, and the underworld. The library's walls themselves seem to hum with the weight of countless stories and secrets, their clay surfaces bearing silent witness to generations of scribes and scholars. You wander over to a cluster of tablets that describe the stars, their formations used by astrologers to predict seasons, harvests, and the fate of kings. This melding of science and spirituality might feel foreign now, but it was a natural part of Mesopotamian thought. Historians still argue whether such practices laid the groundwork for modern astronomy or remained purely symbolic. The soft glow of lamps creates shifting patterns on the reed paper scrolls nearby, inviting your eyes to trace their delicate curves and faded ink. Each scroll is a fragile vessel of memory, vulnerable to time's slow decay, yet preserved with reverence by those who understood their power. In the far corner, you spot a small basin filled with water, used by scribes to moisten clay before inscribing it. This tactile process, a dance between hand and material, feels intimate, a reminder that even in this grand library, the act of writing was a physical, human experience. As you breathe in the mingled scents of reed, clay, and ancient ink, you realize the library is not just a place, but a living organism, its heart beating with curiosity, devotion, and the timeless human desire to understand the world. The night deepens, and the amber glow of oil lamps flickers against the towering stacks of tablets, casting long shadows that seem to dance like ancient spirits around you. You find yourself moving toward a narrow alcove where a small group of scribes sit cross-legged, their voices low and rhythmic as they chant the epic tale of Gilgamesh. The words flow like a gentle river, wrapping around you in a soothing cadence.
Listening to their recitation, you notice how the story shifts between heroism and vulnerability, gods and mortals, life and death. This epic, carved into clay, was one of the earliest known literary works, and it offers a glimpse into Mesopotamian values and fears. Yet historians still debate its exact origins and whether it was originally intended for oral performance or solely for written record. Nearby, an older scribe delicately unrolls a reed scroll, revealing a series of astronomical charts. You trace the intricate diagrams of stars and constellations, amazed by the Mesopotamians' sophisticated understanding of the heavens. They believed these celestial patterns were messages from the gods themselves, guiding their decisions and destiny. One quirky fact floats to the surface of your mind: the way scribes sometimes used numerical cuneiform, not just for counting goods, but also for divination, turning mundane math into mystical insight. This blending of the practical and the magical feels strangely comforting as you watch the flickering candlelight illuminate the intricate marks on the tablets. Your fingers brush against a cool tablet, etched with the sacred hymns to the goddess Ishtar, whose domains spanned love, war, and fertility. The hymns are poetic and rhythmic, designed to be sung or recited in temple rituals. You imagine the weight of such devotion, the hum of incense, and the soft chorus of voices filling the temple's vast halls. Around you, the scent of crushed herbs and dried flowers lingers, mingling with the faint aroma of wet clay. The tactile nature of this world, its materials, textures, and scents, grounds you in the present moment, even as your mind wanders across millennia. You pause, contemplating the scholars' ongoing debate. Was the Grand Library of Ashur purely a repository of knowledge, or did it also serve as a sacred space where priests communed with the divine?
The answer remains elusive, but the sense of reverence here is undeniable. As you settle back into a worn cushion, you realize that this night in the library is not just about ancient texts. It's a journey into the heart of human curiosity, memory, and the enduring power of stories. The hours slip by quietly, the murmur of scribes growing softer as the night deepens further. You lean closer to a small table strewn with ink pots and reed styluses, watching a young apprentice carefully press each wedge-shaped mark into a fresh clay tablet. His hands tremble slightly, a delicate dance of precision and reverence. The art of cuneiform, invented over 5,000 years ago, remains as mysterious as ever. Historians still argue whether the early signs were purely administrative or already imbued with mythic symbolism. The apprentice pauses, his brow furrowing as he struggles with a particularly complex sign. Nearby, a seasoned scribe chuckles softly, reminding you that even in the ancient world, mistakes happened. And sometimes they led to delightful new interpretations. You wonder how many lost stories or accidental inventions slipped through these very walls. Your eyes wander to a towering ziggurat, visible through a small window framed by reed mats, its silhouette bathed in the pale glow of a waxing moon. The temple's function is debated even now. Some see it as a divine stairway to the heavens, others as an astronomical observatory. Either way, it stands as a testament to the ingenuity and devotion of the Mesopotamian people. You notice a faded fresco depicting the goddess Nin-Hursag, mother of the mountains. Her serene face surrounded by motifs of fertility and renewal. It feels as if her gentle gaze blesses the scribes and scholars who spend their nights within these walls. The soft crackle of a nearby hearth blends with the whispered exchanges, the scent of frankincense weaving through the air. You reach out to touch the cool surface of a tablet inscribed with a lullaby, its verses soothing even as they speak of cosmic cycles and earthly tides. As dawn approaches, you feel a sense of calm and wonder. This night spent in the library of Ashur has been more than a glimpse into ancient knowledge. It's been a meditation on the delicate threads that connect past and present, myth and history, word and memory. The scribes slowly gather their tools, extinguishing lamps one by one, leaving only the first pale light of morning to chase away the shadows. You breathe deeply, carrying with you the quiet magic of a world where dreams were etched in clay, and stories held the power to transcend time. The dawn light filters softly through the lattice windows, casting elongated shadows over rows of clay tablets stacked like ancient bricks. You find yourself wandering deeper into the library's labyrinthine halls, where the scent of aged papyrus mingles with the earthy aroma of baked clay. Here, stories live in silent heaps, epics of gods and mortals, treaties etched in precise cuneiform, astronomical observations tied to the cycles of the stars. It's a sanctuary of knowledge, humming quietly beneath the rising sun. You pause to trace the embossed cuneiform borders decorating a massive tablet, each wedge carefully carved by skilled hands thousands of years ago. These inscriptions record the movements of the planet Venus, sacred to the goddess Inanna, whose tales of love and war ripple through Mesopotamian myth. Historians still debate whether these early astronomical records served primarily practical calendrical purposes or were entwined with divine prophecy. Near a reed basket, you spot a collection of reed pens, their tips worn smooth from years of delicate writing. A young scribe sits cross-legged on a woven mat, his fingers stained with ink, eyes focused, as he copies lines from a mythic poem. You can almost hear the whispered cadence of the original words, spoken in a language older than empires, filling the quiet space between the rows of scrolls. In the corner, a small altar holds a flickering oil lamp, its soft orange glow reflecting off polished lapis lazuli inlays. The flicker casts shadows that seem to dance like ancient spirits among the shelves. The ambient light flickers over relief carvings of water buffalo and date palms, scenes from everyday life woven seamlessly with celestial symbols. These visual stories blend the sacred and the mundane, reminding you that in Mesopotamia, the divine was never far from daily toil. You reach for a thin reed scroll inscribed with a hymn to Ashur, the chief god of Assyria, his image stylized and stern, surrounded by cuneiform blessings. The script itself feels like a melody, each wedge-shaped sign a note in an ancient song sung softly by generations long past. Among scholars, debate continues about whether the early library was a center for spiritual enlightenment, administrative control, or a blend of both. Your gaze drifts to a fresco depicting scribes at work, their faces serene, absorbed in their sacred duty. It strikes you how much this library resembles a temple, not just a repository of knowledge, but a living place of ritual and devotion. You imagine the young acolytes learning their craft, balancing reverence with curiosity beneath the temple's high vaulted ceilings. As the morning light grows stronger, the library seems to breathe with the accumulated wisdom of centuries. The stories and secrets etched on these tablets are not just relics, but living echoes, waiting patiently for someone like you to listen. The day deepens, and the library's atmosphere shifts with it. You find yourself drawn toward a secluded alcove where the walls are lined with slender reed paper scrolls. Their delicate fibers shimmer faintly in the amber glow, each scroll carefully tied with strips of dyed leather. These fragile documents contain everything from royal decrees to poetic lamentations, their contents whispering stories of human emotion as vivid as any epic. A gentle breeze stirs the veil of dust that floats lazily in the sunbeams. The air smells faintly of myrrh and crushed herbs, remnants of incense burned in the adjoining temple chambers. You settle onto a low stool beside a table strewn with tablets and tools. A scribe's workspace, frozen in time. The blunt end of a stylus rests beside a shallow bowl of black ink made from soot and sap. You watch as a senior scribe methodically presses the stylus into a soft clay tablet, crafting wedge-shaped impressions that will harden to preserve his words for eternity. It's fascinating how this seemingly simple technique revolutionized communication, transitioning from pictographs to a fully developed script capable of expressing abstract ideas and complex stories. This innovation laid the foundation for the first recorded laws, literature, and scientific records in human history. Nearby, a curious detail catches your eye. A small tablet with what appears to be a coded message, perhaps a form of early encryption or a mnemonic device to aid memorization. Such quirks in cuneiform remind you of the many mysteries still debated by scholars. Did scribes intentionally include secret messages? Or were some symbols purely decorative, meant to invoke divine protection over the knowledge? The walls around you feature relief carvings of gods and celestial beings, their elongated eyes staring serenely as if guarding the ancient wisdom. The mix of earthly concerns and cosmic wonder reflects the Mesopotamian worldview, where the heavens dictated the rhythm of life below, and every star held meaning. In this quiet sanctuary, you feel the weight of history pressing gently against your skin, as if the whispers of the past are brushing your cheek. You realize that spending a night here is not just about reading tablets, but entering a timeless dialogue with the scribes, priests, and dreamers who shaped civilization's first stories.
The fading light outside casts long shadows that stretch across the library's tiled floor, blending with the ink-black recesses between towering shelves. You move deeper into the labyrinth of knowledge, the scent of aged clay and dried papyrus growing stronger. Here, the atmosphere feels charged with reverence, a sacred space where the mundane and the divine converge through the written word. A young apprentice catches your eye, her fingers deftly rolling a fresh reed scroll across a smooth stone slab. Her hands tremble slightly, betraying the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. She is learning to copy ancient hymns sung to Inanna, the goddess of love, war, and fertility. These hymns, woven with metaphor and longing, have travelled centuries to reach this place, preserved by scribes who revered their power. You lean closer, noticing the faint outlines of cuneiform signs beginning to take form beneath the brush of reed pen. The script flows rhythmically, like the gentle ripples of the Tigris River outside these walls. Historians still argue whether these hymns were purely religious or also served as political propaganda, meant to cement the goddess's influence over the city and its people. Nearby, a group of scribes murmurs over a large clay tablet inscribed with an early astronomical chart. The lines and dots represent stars and constellations, their arrangement used to predict lunar cycles and agricultural seasons. It's remarkable how this celestial knowledge guided farming schedules and religious festivals, anchoring everyday life to the cosmos. You recall a curious fact. Some scholars speculate that the ancient Mesopotamians may have had a rudimentary understanding of eclipses, interpreting them as divine omens. The tension between astronomy as science and astronomy as superstition is a fascinating puzzle that still invites debate. As the evening shadows deepen, the warm orange lamplight flickers softly, casting dancing shapes on the worn clay tablets and reed scrolls. The air hums with quiet conversations and the scratching of styluses, blending into a hypnotic lullaby. You feel yourself sinking into the rhythm of this nocturnal world, caught between the past and the present in a timeless dream. You pause beside a grand wooden shelf, its surface worn smooth by centuries of hands reaching for knowledge. Rows of clay tablets lie stacked like ancient bricks, their surfaces etched with cuneiform that whispers forgotten tales. The inscriptions detail everything from mundane tax records to elaborate mythic epics, each one the window into the lives and beliefs of those who came before. A lone scribe sits cross-legged on the stone floor, surrounded by broken pieces of tablets she's painstakingly piecing together. Her focused expression softens when she notices you watching. "These fragments," she says softly, "are parts of the Enuma Elish, the story of creation according to Babylonian myth." She gestures to the jagged edges of a tablet with depictions of gods battling primordial forces. The tale unfolds not just in words, but in the symbolic artistry that adorns each piece. Nearby, incense curls upward from a small terracotta burner, its fragrance mingling with the earthy scent of wet clay and the faint tang of ink. The smoke drifts lazily, casting shifting shadows on the high walls. You notice subtle depictions of Inanna, her figure stylized yet powerful, integrated into the borders of the shelves and tablet cases. This goddess, worshipped as both lover and warrior, watches silently over the library's treasures. You lean closer to a delicate scroll, its reed paper almost translucent in the lamplight. It bears star charts alongside prayers asking for divine favour in upcoming harvests. The juxtaposition of cosmic maps and humble supplications feels like a poetic dance between human curiosity and spiritual hope. It reminds you of the duality that runs through Mesopotamian culture, where the practical and the mystical live side by side. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your mind. Did you know scribes sometimes practice their cuneiform on clay tablets, shaped like cakes or animals? These playful exercises help them master the script, but also reveal a lighter side to their disciplined workdays. Historians still debate how literacy shaped social hierarchies in these ancient cities, whether knowledge was truly power or merely privilege cloaked in sacred mystery. The flickering light seems to pulse with the rhythm of whispered secrets and unspoken prayers. As you settle in, the library's ancient heartbeat wraps around you like a comforting cloak, inviting you to lose yourself in the quiet magic of cuneiform dreams. The air grows cooler as you wander deeper into the library's quieter chambers, where towering stacks of tablets and scrolls form narrow alleys of knowledge. Here, the soft murmur of scribes writing on wet clay is a soothing backdrop to your exploration. Your fingers brush lightly over the rough, sun-baked surfaces of tablets, feeling the faint indentations of wedge-shaped cuneiform that speak volumes in silence. A particular set of tablets catches your eye, astronomical records documenting the cycles of Venus, the morning star, sacred to Inanna. These observations, etched with painstaking care, reveal that Mesopotamian stargazers were among the earliest astronomers in human history. Their star charts not only guided planting seasons, but also shaped myths that intertwined the heavens and earth in a delicate dance. You pause to observe an acolyte carefully grinding coloured pigments into a bowl of water, preparing ink for the next scroll. His steady hands remind you how scribes were artisans as much as scholars, blending precision with ritual. A faint smile tugs at your lips as you recall that some scribes employed bizarre cuneiform practice exercises, like writing repetitive prayers or obscure recipes, to hone their skills. It's a strangely charming form of ancient busywork. In a quiet corner, the glow of a small oil lamp reveals faded murals of the great ziggurat of Ashur. The temple's towering terraces rise in stepped layers, a monumental testament to both faith and human ambition. Historians still debate whether ziggurats served primarily as religious temples or as astronomical observatories, watching stars and planets from their lofty heights. Your gaze drifts upwards to the ceiling, where carved wooden beams are painted in lapis lazuli blues and terracotta reds, colours that seem to pulse softly in the flickering light. The library itself is a living relic, a place where history folds inward on itself like the delicate curls of smoke from the incense burning nearby. As you settle onto a woven mat, the whisper of the scribes blends with your own heartbeat. Here, amidst the ancient scripts and sacred silence, time loses meaning. You feel wrapped in a cocoon of stories and secrets, cuneiform dreams weaving through the night, guiding you gently into sleep. You drift along narrow aisles lined with tall shelves heaped with clay tablets, their surfaces a patchwork of cuneiform symbols worn smooth by centuries of handling. The scent of aged clay mingles with the faint aroma of pressed palm leaves used for scrolls, filling the air with a timeless earthiness. You lean closer, tracing a tablet's carved script with your eyes, imagining the scribe who first pressed the stylus into the soft mud so many years ago. Nearby, a scribe dips his reed stylus into a bowl of ink, preparing to copy ancient hymns to the gods. You catch the delicate scratch of his pen, a soothing sound in this temple of knowledge. These scribes were the keepers of memory, the human hard drives of the ancient world, preserving everything from mundane tax records to grand mythological epics. You notice a small, peculiar tablet resting on a wooden stand, a list of barley measurements, but encoded with a series of mysterious symbols that scholars still puzzle over today. Some say these represent secret rituals related to agricultural fertility, while others argue they're simply early bookkeeping attempts. Historians remain divided, and the mystery adds to the library's quiet enchantment. Glancing up, you see a mural depicting a procession of worshippers carrying offerings of fragrant oils and woven garlands. The figures are stylized, their simple lines and flat colors evoking a timeless dance of devotion. The gentle glow of oil lamps casts flickering shadows that bring the scene alive, as if the worshippers might step down from the wall and join you in this hushed sanctuary. A sudden movement catches your eye. A cat, sleek and alert, prowls silently between the shelves, its eyes glinting like tiny stars in the low light. Cats were revered protectors of grain stores and homes, and it feels fitting to see one here, guarding the treasures of knowledge and myth. You settle onto a cushion near a low table, pulling a scroll of reed paper toward you. As you unroll it slowly, the soft rustle blends with the murmurs of whispered prayers and the occasional scrape of stylus on clay. Tonight, you are not just a visitor. You are part of this sacred space, where the past breathes quietly through the words, etched in stone and ink. The amber glow of oil lamps flickers warmly around you as you reach for a thick, weathered tablet, inscribed with an ancient, astronomical chart. The symbols map out the movements of stars and planets with a precision that would astonish even modern eyes. You feel the pulse of early scientific curiosity here, the same curiosity that led Mesopotamian scholars to track celestial patterns for agricultural calendars and divine omens. Some historians still debate whether these star charts were purely practical or also served as mystical guides to the heavens. As your fingers brush the tablet's surface, you imagine the scribes who devoted their nights to this delicate work, their eyes adjusting to the dim light, their minds weaving together myth and observation. Nearby, a reed brush rests on a ceramic bowl filled with thick black ink, ready to capture the next record. You shift your attention to a large reed basket filled with small tokens, shaped clay pieces stamped with cuneiform, used for accounting or magical rituals. You pick one up, noting the intricate pattern on its face, a kind of signature from the scribe who created it. It's a humble object, but steeped in meaning, linking everyday commerce with sacred belief. Soft chanting begins somewhere in the shadows, a low rhythmic murmur in the tongue of ancient gods. You recognize the familiar names of Enlil, Ea, and Ishtar, whispered like a lullaby. It's said that scribes often recited prayers to these deities to ensure wisdom and protection during their work, a ritual blending the practical with the spiritual. You glance at a nearby wall adorned with faded frescoes showing temple priests performing ceremonies beneath a towering ziggurat. The flat, stylized figures are framed by geometric borders filled with cuneiform signs, hinting at stories now lost to time. Some scholars argue whether the ziggurat was meant more for astronomical observations or as a bridge between Earth and the divine. Either way, its presence looms like a silent sentinel over the library's wisdom. The air grows cooler as the night deepens, and the flickering lamps cast long shadows that dance like ancient spirits between the shelves. You feel the weight of countless stories pressing softly against the walls, waiting to be discovered. The library's silence deepens as you settle into a quiet corner. The stone floor cool beneath you. You pull a reed scroll from a wooden rack, its papyrus-like surface delicate and fragrant, with the faint scent of reeds and ancient ink. This scroll tells of the mythic tale of Gilgamesh, the great king who walked between gods and men, searching for eternal life. You imagine the flickering torchlight of storytellers reciting these verses to eager audiences centuries ago, their voices weaving magic from clay and reed. Nearby, a group of young scribes practice their cuneiform strokes on wet clay tablets, their fingers stained with earth and ink. You watch a novice hesitate, then press the wedge-shaped stylus into the soft clay, creating the first impressions of a complex language. It's said that learning cuneiform was like learning to speak with the gods themselves, a sacred and challenging task demanding patience and devotion. One scribe hums a tune, a lullaby of sorts, that is believed to calm both mind and hand during late-night study. You feel the rhythm of the place, the heartbeat of knowledge passed from one generation to the next. The scent of burning incense curls in the air, mingling with the musk of aged clay and dried papyrus, creating an atmosphere both scholarly and sacred. You notice a tablet with a peculiar inscription, an astrological prophecy involving the rising of the planet Venus, associated with the goddess Ishtar. Ancient astronomers meticulously recorded these events, believing they influenced the fate of kings and kingdoms. Interestingly, historians still debate whether these prophecies were taken as divine truth or clever political tools. In the corner, a carved wooden box holds tiny tokens used in divination rituals, one for each day of the lunar month. You hold a token shaped like a crescent moon and wonder at the delicate balance between science, superstition, and storytelling that filled this vast repository of wisdom. Outside, the Euphrates murmurs softly, its waters reflecting the distant flicker of torchlight from the temple. You're wrapped in the quiet intimacy of the library, a cocoon where time seems to fold and the past whispers its secrets, just for you. Your fingers trace the worn edges of a thick clay tablet, its surface etched with detailed star charts that have guided generations of Mesopotamian astronomers. The tablet's intricate patterns map the heavens with surprising precision, revealing the early beginnings of astronomy. You imagine ancient scholars, their eyes trained skyward, drawing connections between the stars and the fates of their city-states. A gentle murmur flows through the stacks as a pair of elder scribes converse in soft, respectful tones about the latest astronomical observations. You overhear mention of the path of the moon and the cycles that dictate the agricultural calendar, reminders of how celestial events guided the rhythm of everyday life in Mesopotamia. As you turn another tablet, you find a collection of prayers and hymns dedicated to Nabu, the god of writing and wisdom.
The script flows in neat rows, each symbol carved with care, as if each word held the power to connect mortal minds to the divine. You learn that scribes often dedicated their work to Nabu, hoping for his favour and guidance. In a shadowed alcove, you discover a small, sealed jar containing fragrant oils and pigments used by scribes to prepare their tools. The scent of myrrh and cedarwood fills your senses, linking you directly to the rituals of this ancient world. Curiously, some scribes believed that the act of inscribing words was itself a sacred rite, a way to breathe life into stories and preserve memory. The amber glow of a nearby oil lamp flickers across a faded mural depicting a ziggurat rising toward the heavens. Historians still argue whether these towering structures served primarily as temples, astronomical observatories, or both. You let your eyes linger on the carved figures, stylized yet full of life, embodying a culture that sought connection between earth and sky. Outside, the first hints of dawn tint the horizon with pale pink and gold. The library's vast chambers begin to stir with the promise of a new day, but for now you remain nestled in the warm embrace of ancient knowledge, a silent witness to the dreams and discoveries of a civilization long past. The quiet hum of the library deepens as you settle into a corner surrounded by towering shelves heaped with clay tablets and reed scrolls. You pick up a tablet inscribed with a tale of Gilgamesh, the legendary king whose adventures echo through time. The text speaks of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality, timeless themes that resonate even as centuries separate you from their telling. The flickering lamplight casts dancing shadows across the room, blending with the soft rustling of papyrus and the faint scratch of reed pens on clay. You inhale the earthy aroma of ancient ink and sun-baked clay, a comforting scent that feels like a bridge across millennia. Nearby, a young apprentice practices cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script that transformed communication and record-keeping. You notice subtle differences in stroke depth and angle, reminders that even the most skilled scribes had unique styles, and that this writing system was still evolving when these stories were first recorded. A whispered conversation between two scribes captures your attention. They discuss the mysteries behind some of the more esoteric symbols. Scholars today still debate whether certain marks represent abstract concepts or coded messages meant only for initiated priests. You smile, imagining the secrecy and sacredness wrapped around these ancient texts. Your eyes drift to the corner where a small basin holds water and crushed lapis lazuli, the prized blue pigment used to decorate tablets and ritual objects. The color symbolizes the heavens and divine favor, a reminder of the deep intertwining of religion and knowledge in Mesopotamian society. As the night wanes, you reflect on the incredible dedication required to build and maintain this grand library, one of the earliest centers of learning in human history. The scribes' painstaking work has preserved stories and discoveries that continue to inspire awe and wonder. With a final glance at the fading stars outside, you close your eyes and let the gentle weight of ancient wisdom lull you towards sleep. The echoes of cuneiform dreams linger softly, promising new journeys in the realms of history and imagination.